Our next two speakers are going to be looking at the transition to aged care services and the lived experience of ageing with HIV and what sort of specialised long-term services we should be implementing in the community. And our first speaker to address this issue is David Menadue. David was diagnosed with HIV in 1984. He experienced several AIDS-defining illnesses. He's been very involved in the Australian HIV sector as a board and executive member of state and national organisations. And for that he was awarded an Order of Australia, otherwise known as a Gong, in 1995. And he's also written a very interesting autobiography called Positive. Can you please welcome David Menadue? And he has a fan club.
Good morning all. Thanks Rob, and I'd also like to thank Russell and all the researchers that are continuing to work in this area. People with HIV, when they get to my age or they've lived with HIV for a long time, we're confused about what's happening to our bodies. We think it's not particularly normal ageing processes, yet some doctors like to say, oh well, you know, you're getting to 60, it's a sort of normal thing. Well, as I hope you'll agree with my talk, it's not quite as simple as that. As a person who's lived with HIV for 30 years and survived multiple AIDS-defining illnesses, I've always expected that some of the damage done to my body in that period of no or ineffective treatments would live with me and have repercussions down the track. And there's no doubt this has happened. I've experienced major HIV-related wasting in the late 80s. Was it due to the toxic daily dose of AZT, or that combined with the virus itself? Even when HIV treatments improved in the mid-90s, we've been told that even some of that generation of drugs contributed to further muscle wasting. Despite thousands of hours spent in the gym since then, little of that muscle mass has come back. I experienced mobility problems, as you can probably see, for many years and started to develop osteoarthritis 15 years ago. Last month I had a knee reconstruction operation and I expect I'll be keeping my orthopaedic surgeon busy into the future. Oh, I'm being cursed. Oh, dear. It's not moving. As you might say, or some people might say, it's normal enough for a 61-year-old man to experience arthritis and need a knee operation. I'm not disputing this, and I'm certainly grateful to still be here. But we have to recognise that anyone who has had HIV for 15 years or more, or even maybe less, has usually had to deal with a range of chronic complaints, some related to years of untreated or poorly treated virus and to the inflammatory processes that Peter just mentioned. So we know they still occur within a HIV-positive person's body regardless of how well they're treated with antivirals. So I developed diabetes in 1999. Was it protease inhibitor related? I can't be sure. Developed proteinuria. Was it related to Truvada? Again, we can't be sure, but my doctor took me off it as a precaution to protect my kidneys. A HIV-related dermatitis that's never left me, a range of dental problems from a constant dry mouth, and last year was lucky to survive a very aggressive lymphoma. And I'd like to add that I've been very well treated through most of that period, had an undetectable viral load in recent years, in the last 10, 15 years, and I'm not a smoker or a heavy drinker, so some of those lifestyle factors hopefully haven't been part of it. But I actually feel lucky when compared with long-term survivor friends who have experienced heart attacks, strokes, acute peripheral neuropathy, osteoporosis and cognitive impairment. As was the case with AIDS-defining illnesses, it was the burden of illness that weighs people down. In the 80s and 90s, we saw people losing their will to live because of the number of debilitating and life-threatening illnesses they had to deal with, often at once. Today, the illnesses we are dealing with are usually not life-threatening, at least not with our privileged first world care, but they sap people's spirit and test the resilience of the best of us. No one likes to look old before their time. No one likes to have to live with sunken cheeks and protruding bellies, which are still side effects of some HIV drugs. Plastic surgery interventions, which have been grateful have been funded in recent times here, they might help, but you have to keep going back for more injections for the treatments, as the treatments and the virus still try to beat you with the ugly stick. And I won't even bother going into the side effects of treatments or the number of pills we more complex people with HIV have to take. I'll just say that for a while there, few HIV treatments seemed not to have an effect of giving people diarrhoea. Whenever you'd leave the house, you'd plan to take a change of clothes, or at least a map of where the local public toilets were in case you had to get there in a rush. So, from the earliest days of HIV, dear me. So people like me don't get to still be here by being defeatist. So learning how to be resilient and adapt to your situation is often the most important consideration. Do you have people you can go to for support when the burden of illness gets you down? Do you feel able to be open with your doctor when anxiety and depression understandably creep into your life? Are there good HIV experienced mental health practitioners available to you? And also, in terms of coordination of care, having a central doctor to coordinate your HIV and non-HIV care is essential. Currently, I see 6 specialists for different conditions at the Alfred Hospital in Melbourne. I feel blessed to have my care coordinated by an infectious diseases specialist at the hospital because she's able to quickly refer me to the right specialist when each new problem occurs. And most importantly, she receives information and results from those consultations soon after I've had them. My specialist is an important monitor for the decision-making of other specialists too. HIV is a complex area with all its drug interactions and unusual presentations. Specialists are generally not HIV experienced, and I'm comforted to know that an ID specialist is able to review their decisions in the light of the latest HIV research. Most people in Victoria have their HIV care coordinated by a general practitioner, and we are fortunate to have some highly skilled and knowledgeable doctors trained in HIV care, even though many of us are anxious this may not always be the case. GPs do not always receive reports from hospitals or private specialists in a timely way. Their care is still excellent, but without a proper e-health system in place, the coordination of care is probably not as good as it could be. From the earliest days of HIV, I felt the only way I could keep on top of my condition was to read and learn as much as I could from the experts. While my doctors were always my greatest source of information, I needed to take an active part in my health care. Like it or not, mistakes can be made by doctors and pharmacists. Knowing what your pills were for, how often to take them, what the side effects were, helped reduce my anxiety about my HIV management considerably. We need HIV community organisations to continue to help people with their information needs as people develop complex side effects related to ageing. The largest demographic of HIV-positive people in many Western countries is approaching 50 years of age. There has to be attention paid to including all people in messages and in service delivery. It's not just about health promotion and living well. Laudable as those aims are, it's about acknowledging that some people are in fact unwell. They need special efforts made to be included in social and education activities. Older people with HIV can feel isolated as their looks deteriorate and their disability becomes obvious. We need to tackle this stigma and can't allow any discrimination against the sick or elderly to be part of our community response. I hope I'm not playing bingo at the end of life, but who knows. While many people with HIV are relatively well, the demands for acute hospital care have fortunately reduced. However, we know that